How many women here listened to that description of the capable wife from Proverbs and thought, nailed it? That is so me. None of you? How many men heard it and thought, I'm glad that's not my job description? How many of you heard it and thought, great, another totally unrealistic, totally unattainable portrait of womanhood concocted by a man? It is hyperbolic, to say the least. Just as the figure of wisdom towers over the opening pages of Proverbs, this capable wife, or actually, I prefer the way the Jewish Study Bible names her, this woman of strength, she has the final word in Proverbs. She is the capstone and the culmination of all that has come before. She is not, as one commentary puts it, one specific woman. I mean, how could she be? But a paragon of ideal virtues. And not simply female virtues. I mean, these same virtues have been described throughout the book, which was written to a young man. Virtue has no gender, does it? But at the end of the book of Proverbs, these virtues are embodied in female form. I wonder if there were aspects of her description that surprised you, especially given that she is a woman. I mean, she is not the behind-the-scenes helpmeet that we might expect a woman in the ancient world to be, is she? She is, in the words of one commentary, a proud and splendid woman, the mistress of a prosperous manor. She is independent. She has her own business. She trades with people from all over the world. She owns property. She gives generously to the poor, provides for her family, speaks wisdom, teaches kindness, looks to the future with hope. Yes, she appears to be cisgendered and married and a mother, but it's interesting that the work of mothering is not listed among her tasks. And yet her children call her happy. Also, her appearance is never described. We are never told what she looks like, what her body type is. We are only reminded that charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. It is her knowledge and fear of the Lord. It is the fruit of her hands and the result of her works for which she is praiseworthy, for which anyone, no matter the gender, would be praiseworthy. She is an ideal that everyone, regardless of gender, can and should aspire to. There is another ideal human described in our gospel reading today. This one is maybe less surprising to us, but it was certainly surprising to the disciples and the readers and hearers of Mark's gospel. Like the woman of strength, this is an atypical paragon of virtue, the virtues of humility and servitude and vulnerability. In many ways, the polar opposite of the woman of strength. I'm talking about the child that Jesus takes and places among the disciples and then takes again and holds in his arms. This child is not a symbol of purity and innocence the way we often associate childhood. This child represents the lowest status a human can be. If the woman is a kind of superhuman, this child is a subhuman, barely human. It doesn't even have a gender. Did you notice? It is practically an object in this story. The woman of strength is not an object. She's not even objectified. She is a full person. She has agency. She acts decisively and powerfully in the world. The child has no agency, has no rights. It is helpless, utterly dependent. It has no power, no privilege. It's like a doll. It's picked up and set down and picked up again and used to teach a lesson about how we are to be in the world. Humble, servants of all, welcoming all, especially the least and the lost. Two paragons of virtue, one with seemingly all of the agency and power and capability in the world, and one with no agency, no power, but an awful lot of potential. And both of them are lifted up as ideals for us to aspire to. Well, what are we to make of this? In many ways, I think these two form the gravitational poles that pull us in one direction or another. They are the binary stars which light our path, but also create tension as we try to live our lives between these two opposing forces, because they're always stretching us and we're always oscillating between them, sometimes closer to one and sometimes closer to the other. When we get too close to one and start arguing about power and who's the greatest, Jesus pulls us back using the powerless, dependent, humble pole. At other times, we might be too close to the child's pole and feel overwhelmed, incapable, too dependent, a burden on everyone else. And that's when we need this woman of strength to remind us of our power, of our agency, of our responsibility to the community around us. So where are you today? Which star has more pull on you? Do you need a dose of the child's humility? Or do you need an injection of the woman's power? Are you too dependent or a little too self-reliant? Take your practiced powers and stretch them out until they span the chasm between two contradictions, wrote Rainer Maria Rilke. And that's what we need to do. That's our calling, to stretch out like that. And remember, balance is not a static state. Balance is dynamic. It requires constant adjustment and readjustment. And paradoxically, it is only by balancing between these two that we can actually embrace both of them and actually become both of them and show by our good lives that our works are done with gentleness, born of wisdom, peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And thereby, we plant the seeds and sow a harvest of righteousness and peace for all. Amen.